You'll probably be very glad to know that this is in fact the last caption for today's online session. But I wanted to finally finish by looking at the resource allocation system. The resource allocation system is really the point in time when funding will be allocated. And at that point, issues around financial assessments will become important post-resource allocation system. Because the resource allocation system will identify what exactly is needed at this time. What exactly will the cost be? And what are the links to outcomes, so intervention and outcomes? Now the panels do vary. For example, in Slough, the social worker will do all of the joint assessments with the individual service user, prepare all of the reports and the submissions, and then it goes to a manager's panel. And in those cases, the managers will go through the documentation, review the documentation and make a decision. But in those cases, it's usually two commissioners, health and social care, with so integrated working and joint budgets, and they decide on the percentage and the portions that will come from various budgets. And it does become a bit complicated, but for your point of view, or from your point of view and your perspective, the resource allocation system is a decision-making process that will confirm either the direct budget, personal budget, commissioned care, and will make a decision based upon the evidence that you have presented. So that's one method. Another method, which is slightly more common, particularly in larger agencies, is that you'll do the same as the previous example. You'll prepare all the documents and then you'll present to a panel of service managers and accountants, both in health and social care. And in those cases, that the argument has to be equally as tight, but you may have 15 minutes to present your case to a panel. But bear in mind that you're actually competing against other colleagues for fairly limited funds. So there isn't an indefinite bottomless pit to what is available financially. So the imperative is that your argument needs to be very closely tuned and linked to the criteria that we've looked at earlier on, particularly outcome focused and long-term planning and strategic gains. And then finally, the third particular model that is beginning to happen, hasn't happened in the past, but it's beginning to happen now, and that is that where self-directed support becomes a central theme, and it is becoming a central theme, that the service user or carer presents in partnership with the social worker to the panel the case. Now I think that's probably the most interesting one, and I think it's probably the one that will be the most effective in the long term. But clearly there are issues about, will the individual have confidence? Is this something that is universal? Are there any difficulties that need to be anticipated about that? I mean, is it fair to ask somebody who may be quite vulnerable to walk into a room where there's quite a few people that they won't know to present a case? So that's okay if people feel confident, but if they're not confident, then your skills as a social worker become a lot more important, because you will have to work with the individual to a point whereby you are giving them encouragement, giving them confidence, and preparing them for preparation. I mean, usually panels will be very kind and tolerant in those situations, but it's still a matter of discussing resource allocation. One of the benefits to that, though, is I think it's transparent. You know, that the system doesn't become a mystery to people, and that service users and carers or customers under the new framework will actually be fully a part of that process, and will be able to challenge indirectly or directly the process if they do not feel comfortable with. So, therein lies the brief introduction today for the online session. Please do go through everything and have a look at the resources that I've posted onto Blackboard. Please revise what we did also in personalization and have a look at the materials that we went through. In particular, please have a look at the documents that were posted onto Blackboard. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you the following week when we will look at safeguarding. And that will be the beginning of the next key element, I think, the key element with regard to the role of social workers in adult social care. We're very lucky to have Beth Booker, who's Safeguarding Manager and Safeguarding Lead in Slough Borough Council, and she will be coming to co-facilitate the lecture with me. Thank you very much and have a very good week.